welcome to our returning to work and what new risks are you facing now as companies come back up to work? And I just want to say real quick before Jeff gets started with our presentation, we saw a very interesting marketing piece that talked about how important accommodating customers are in COVID, and how if you're making it really easy for customers to do business safely, then loyalty is growing like crazy. And if you're making it harder for people to do business, loyalty is suffering. And so we began to think ourselves on how can we improve our accommodation. But then we're in the risk business. And so we're always thinking about, well, if we do that, what are the things that can go wrong? And so we'll talk about kind of the balancing of these three risks. So without any further ado, Jeff, let me share my screen and we can get started. Is the screen up yet?
I'm good. John,
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I can see.
Yep.
Great. All right. Thanks for joining us today. Jeff Helm with Gordon Atlantic Insurance. One of the things we're going to discuss today are some of the risks in doing business with the new COVID-19 age. Some of those will be including what today's business environment is going to demand. We're going to be talking about balancing competing risks, and we'll close with some insight into what we see in the insurance business as trends that are going to affect you as business owners. Jeff, I'm going to switch screens here because, here we go. So one of the things that we are concerned about working with business owners are helping them quantify known risks and helping them determine, are they losing business? And what are the reasons for that? We actually have a couple of businesses that are significantly increased in size, and that's because their innovation attitude and what Jeff was talking in terms of customer appreciation, customer accommodation. What you need to do in terms of working with your advisors is to continue to run projections and reports. This is absolutely critical because we need to help you determine the sustainability of your business plan and business model as it relates to your insurance business. That's really, 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 really important. One of the things that you'll see a lot of is known as the 3 C's. The 3 C's are closed spaces, and these are things you want to avoid: closed spaces, crowded spaces, and close contact settings. The 3 C's have been working very successfully in the Asian markets, in the Asian areas, who are very comfortable with wearing face coverings and have been for some time. We need to try and help our clients and our businesses do that. So in closed spaces, you've got a small office layout, typically for the administrative staff. You could have an engineering firm. You need to sometimes consider redesigning those layouts. Crowded places such as sporting events. These are starting to come back. We see it an awful lot with some of the younger people playing basketball and playing touch football. Those are areas of exposures for your younger employees, which could have an impact on you. And close contact settings, social gatherings. We're now starting to have smaller wedding services, funerals. A lot of those social gathering churches are now reopening. And in those situations, when you've got a lot of loud talking or singing, CDC and World Health have just been talking about the aerosol displacement as being one of the bigger risks. So the next thing really, there's sort of the 4th C, and we'll call that contact tracing. Governor Baker here in Massachusetts was one of the leaders of this technology development. So that if you're a restaurant and you go in and you're making a reservation, they may ask for your phone number so that in the event there is an exposure, they'll be able to contact trace you and call you and say, we just want you to be aware of that and govern yourself accordingly. There are a lot of unknown losses that are difficult to quantify. Employee productivity. There are different reports that we've been reading on about what is the effectiveness. Surprisingly, the best report that I've seen is there's typically a 1 to 2% reduction in profitability of employees, which is not at all what any of us expected certainly when we went full remote back in March, and where many companies did that. The worst employee productivity loss I saw was 9%. So we're actually doing pretty well in this remote work from home environment. You do eliminate the hotspots for potential customer infection. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of social responsibility. The big thing that we need to be concerned about and cognizant of are government regulations, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. So where are you right now as a business owner? We're out of the crisis mode, and we did a webinar about a month and a half ago when we were sort of in the crisis mode. That was right after things exploded. Now we're sort of in the analytical mode and see how are we going to move forward on this. PPP loans, we've all been through those. There actually is round 3 opened up last week, so that there are businesses that got shut out before. You are able to apply to your local bank for that. And if you need contacts or referrals, we're happy to do that. Helping deal with unemployment issues. We're transitioning really to, with new data, to an understanding of how to integrate our social distancing as we work hard to reopen. We have to be innovative in terms of order to survive. Just think of online ordering or drive-up delivery. Who would have thought that as a larger hardware store or lumber facility, you would order online, drive up, drive around back, the employees of the business load it onto your truck or your car, and you drive away. You don't touch a thing. Very interesting. Same thing with restaurants. You pull up, they give you a number, park in slot 8, be there at 8:02, and they walk out the door. Or in terms of innovating, having outdoor dining on Main Street in downtown Boston. All these kind of things, which are really sort of developing your new normal, which we need to really sort of think what that's going to look like.
Yeah, actually, I'll just jump in for a second. Another example that's huge right now is telemedicine. You know, we've been talking about telemedicine and teleeducation, and boy, those are really they're moving very quickly. So yeah, it's part of this, I guess, is, you know, what is the new normal going to be, and we're trying to figure that out. So anyway, I just wanted to jump in.
Yeah, and that's really really funny point. I got an email from my dermatologist who wanted to do telemedicine. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? And they said, well, and I said, no, I don't think so. So I decided to skip on that. So talk about customer accommodation. That really didn't work very well for me. So the new normal is we need to make sure that we can help our employees with the productivity. A great thing that Jeff, you were talking about earlier, is the 3-on-3, where working with your employees, encourage them to share the social interaction that they're missing, skip the water cooler kind of thing. Because a lot of these people are social beings, and they really miss the ability to share, hey, I saw my grandkids, or we social distance with some neighbors, or this is what I'm really feeling and stressing on. So encouraging people to do that 15 minutes once a week with 2 or 3 different people and rotate that through. So that's a really, really good technique that you as an employer can encourage. So we've got a couple of thoughts. The first thought, as Jeff touched on, is customer accommodation. You really, really need to make it easy to do business with you. Because if you don't, it's going to cost you customers. With social media, word will get out very quickly. So the best way to do that is to be your customer or become your customer, and say, all right, if I were coming into my business, how would I want to be treated? Do I want to worry about all of these people in the store that don't have face coverings on? Interesting things that you can do in terms of accommodating, as we were talking about earlier, is one-way aisles in grocery stores. A lot of people are going to take a long time to get that because they realize they've forgotten the tomato paste and they turn around and walk the other way. That's just sort of going with the times, but you're addressing both your customer needs and also your employee needs, because they're fearful of going back to work. Think of teachers going back in the fall or potentially going back in the fall. We have several of our children are in the education field, and they're very, very nervous about this. So their schools are trying to accommodate them the best they can too.
Yeah, this is really at the core of the balancing risk that we were talking about. I mean, we want to reverse engineer for the customer experience, but we got to keep our employees safe. Yeah.
That's a big thing. And we'll talk about that in a minute about keeping employees safe. But social media consultants that we work with have started seeing that this is one of the best times to be able to grow your business by being flexible and thinking outside the box, and being social present. Because if you're easy to do business with, every one of our towns has the social platform, and they will say, hey, I was just down getting lobster, or I was around the corner at this hardware store, and they were really, really great. If you're not out there and not being promoted, that's a good way to lose business. And similarly, that is a great way to pick up business. Second thing is make sure that you pay attention to changing state and local guidelines. Cutting corners won't get you anywhere. The big risk is adhering to these things for a couple of reasons. It'll provide you, and we're not attorneys, we're not providing legal advice, but it makes common sense that if you subscribe to what CDC or World Health Organization or the federal authorities are saying at this time, and that's a very, very important point. At this time, we know more than we did a month ago or 2 months ago. This is what we're recommending. Think of Dr. Fauci when originally he promoted not having to wear face coverings. Well, we didn't know any better now. We didn't know about the aerosol spread. Now they are very insistent, and Dr. Fauci is very insistent in terms of having a face covering to protect you, but also your fellow employees. And the third really is cyber threats. And this is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest exposures that we have. One of the reports that we read is that almost over 650% increase in emails targeting your employees. And this is a work from home exposure that you have. And you as an employer really have to support having hard and fast rules with employees. You don't want to let your employees' kids use a company computer. You don't want to use a home computer using company business, because a lot of employees are working remote and will always be working remote going forward, depending on how business plays out, with a bring your own device. You want to encourage people not to do business on their personal phone. Really, really drill down hard with your IT people. Ask, and if you don't, install a VPN, which is a virtual private network, point-to-point protection for you guys. Multi-factor identification. Most of the times now when you're getting into a lot of applications, they have to send you a text or an email saying, here's a 6 or 7 digit code, type that in, and then we'll open your files. Those are the kind of things that I think you need to work closely with the IT, really to sort of protect the business. So let's talk about, what about your insurance? Business interruption. This has really been all over the map and in the press for the last several months, and it's difficult to understand. As a business owner, you're paying a lot for insurance. You thought you had this coverage, but we don't. And that's specifically, there are exclusions on most of the insurance policies going back to the period of SARS and measles for a virus and bacteriological exclusion. There's no way for anyone to be able to predict what the impact of something like that. So most of the policies exclude it. There are a couple of exceptions, and those particular carriers will be subject to, as all will, sort of the courts having to decide what is appropriate. But the one good thing going forward is there are moves to develop a federally backed business interruption caused by virus situation. So similar to the flood insurance program or terrorism, those are the kind of things that we look to do it. But there are also, I think, 14 states now that have filed legislation forcing companies to retroactively change a contract. It's ill-advised and puts the financial basis of many of the insurance companies at risk. So that's something that we want to move forward with. General liability. You as an employer have an exposure if you bring people back to work and don't take steps to accommodate them and protect them. So those are the things that it depends, and this is the big thing in the insurance business now. You'll hear, do I have coverage for that? And you have to say, counsel, let's say it depends, because the court system can do a lot of different things in terms of applying legal liability to you as an employer for bodily injury. So if you have a hotspot in your restaurant, how do you handle that? So And to that point, workers' compensation and employers' liability, an employee can collect for damages under workers' compensation due to this COVID-19. So it is a compensable claim, and you need to be aware of that, which really sort of drills down the importance of you as an employer providing a safe workplace for your employees. Because if you've got a significantly established company with a large employee base, that could have a financial impact that's going to go on 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So you really, really have to pay attention to that. Employer's liability is another situation, and that's going to be a long legal situation. Were you irresponsible in terms of opening your business and expose your employees unnecessarily? That's different for your medical payments and lost claims, and those are things that we can help you understand. Again, my biggest fear is data breach and cyber liability. Email scams going to your employees and even to your finance people are extremely sophisticated and targeted. And we've probably all got American Express and Capital One, phishing emails that look really, really authentic. You need to train your employees and work with them on that. Most are coming from outside the US. And you have to, as a business owner, determine what's your time worth if you have an attack, as opposed to having your insurance company step up and help you out. So do not skimp on IT security. It's probably the biggest exposure for your business right now. And if you don't have cyber risk insurance, contact us and we can work with you on that. A lot of small business policies do have incidental coverages, which really, really, it's window dressing. It doesn't give you what you need to protect your business. Mitigation techniques, a lot of these you've seen, but the first point here I want to emphasize, and it sounds like I'm an IT guy, use technology. One of our consultants and a client of mine, they actually are working with a lot of the hospitals, medical facilities, and larger businesses having auto temp readers. They will set up a stand so that at the doors, when people come in, they can set a temperature of 104.1. Anyone over in that sets off an alarm, and you can have somebody address that particular customer, employee, or visitor, say, you know what, do you feel all right, and sort of counsel them on that. That's a temperature scanning that's going to be starting to be used in airports for security there. Another really good one is where you have multiple entrances to businesses is a customer counter. So the Commonwealth may say you can have 50% occupancy. How do you do that when you've got 4, 5, or 6 different entrances? It's virtually impossible. Technologies out there with scanners and readers that can do that count for you, counting people automatically come in and come out. Really, really cool social counting and customer software. Social distancing, these are all pretty routine. One of the things that we're looking to encourage people to do is bubbling. And if you've got a team of, say, researchers or engineers or people working on a specific project, try and keep those people working together with the same employees. Bring food to the table, don't have your cafeterias and those kind of things open, and try and minimize the exposures through a buddy system. So those are really sort of the important pieces. So what we talk about is really sort of the business environment and those competing risks, cyber being one of the largest, and the accommodations of your customers and employees to keep them safe. And we talked a little bit about insurance, and we are here to help. Gordon Atlantic is with a full complement of insurance advisors, consultants, brokers, account managers, and we have a really, really top-notch group of legal and other professional accounting and payroll consultants that we can get you the answers. We would love to be your brokers, but we don't need to be. We're here as a resource, and we do make insurance make sense. That's what we like to do. So I do want to thank you for joining us today. We have a whole bunch of great information up on the website. Jeff and the team, we've been putting up white papers and a lot of blogs. So go to agordon.com and you'll see that on there. So I do want to thank you for spending the day. This last thing is a little bit about me. I do have a lot of stuff up on LinkedIn, as does the agency. So we look forward to working with you guys and helping you on any questions.
Thank you. So I think at this point, Jeff, I'm going to stop recording and then we can just take some questions from attendees. So let me stop this recording right now and then we'll open it up.